Hi, everyone. Yes. I was saying that it's kind of inconvenient. You cannot properly see the slides. So, hello, the brave survivors. Those who stayed till the end, you are awesome. So we are going to sing. So I'm here, you're here. The third person who was supposed to give. Okay, then it's gonna be me as well. Okay. Um, on the side. Fantastic. PhD in astrophysics. PhD. Okay. So on the first day, we took 3 prompts from our brainstorming document, plus a couple of questions arised after uh, after the discussion. So one main thing that was sort of shining through all the conversations on the day 1 and also I think on the day 2 and day 3 is that a lot of issues about which we were talking are social. It is lack of coordination between different observing facilities. It is lack of instruments for joining different surveys. It is problems with scheduling, with having a common schedule of observations, especially spectroscopic people were talking about this a lot. So it's not as much purely scientific issues as issues that come from the way how our society works. So the first question was about which TDA anomalies are unlikely to be spotted by the LSST observation with the OSST observational cadence and its properties. And the discussion started with brief discussion about how OSST is going to observe the sky and what are the latest news on the cadence. And the outcome of the discussion was that OSST is probably not going to be very good for the rapidly changing stochastic variable objects as well as for infrared bursting objects, but Ruben should be good, Roman should be good for covering this part of the parameter space. And for the rapidly changing objects, additional surveys are going to be useful. So kind of a note that was also highlighted is that even with the start of observations of new big facilities, we should keep in mind that the already existing observatories should keep getting funded because these new big observatories are not substitute for smaller observatories and robotic observatories that provide us with maybe lower quality of the data but better cadences. The second question was I cannot see what was the second. Okay, it was my question. What kind of substitute data would be most beneficial in terms of cost-reward ratio to supplement the LSST data. And also some answer came from, I think, someone also from supernova people, I guess, that in addition to these light curves from LSST, we want more light curves with higher sampling. But in addition to this, there was a talk about it would be nice to have a spectroscopic survey that would observe all objects up to certain magnitude, for example, Mach 21. And it seems like it is feasible with the right allocation of observational time. Plus, there were discussions about whether we can supplement spectroscopic surveys with IFUs so that we could observe the big portions of the sky simultaneously. Plus, narrowband photometry following the awesome talk from the day 1 was also highlighted. This is something that probably didn't come up often when we just think about what kind of additional data we would like to have apart from our usual data sets. Third question was what kind of software and data infrastructure are going to be missing or what kind of data infrastructure we are still missing that we need to fully utilize our data sets. Once again, spectroscopic people who work with spectroscopy a lot were complaining that there is lack of coordination, and it would be nice if different spectroscopic facilities had a common queue and well coordinated their efforts so that there was less duplication, but more objects observed. Plus, there was also a talk that an archival data is needed also for spectroscopy because supernova catalog is shutting down. And I think there was a big discussion about how credits are going to be attributed when some observational data, if we aim to release observational data very rapidly. Finally, yes, one of the follow-up questions. So what can we do about these issues? And the suggestions were is that it would be, if you are on a TAC committee, it would be nice for you to fund pipelines and data reduction software so that they were more or less uniform and that there were dedicated people who take care of this. Plus, a discussion about crediting issues should be started within science collaborations because these questions are domain specific. People who work with supernova and people who work with non-time sensitive science dealing with different sociological aspects. And what? Yeah, there was a discussion about the importance of documentation, but come on, we all know that. And that was the end of day one. I don't think that anyone is responsible for day two is around, so I will cover this as well. There was only, I think, one question discussed extensively about what kind of biggest challenges in time domain astronomy we are going to have like 5 years down the road when the LSST is in fully operational mode. So there was one of the issues discussed is how do we handle alerts that are coming, that are triggering follow-up observations if this triggering is happening rapidly, and if it is fully automated, still a significant portion of these alerts is just garbage. So it's an open question, how do we handle this? And likely there will be, it will be still not fully resolved in 5 years. Something was said about, yes, once again, coordination between different observational facilities and surveys. It was just continuation of the same discussion. And important note was made that amateur astronomers are actually contributing a lot to our time-sensitive science. And there are things that are not very clear about how to credit them for their effort. And there are issues with how to unify their findings and their reports, because right now it is done in a pretty much independent way by each of the facilities. So thought if maybe some big astronomical party like International Astronomical Union should think about this and should find a way to unify at least partially these reports from those who helps us from the citizen scientists. And I think that this is the start of day 3, please.
All right, so for day 3, we did a follow-up discussion. In the first part of the session, we did a follow-up discussion on how do we address the challenge of bringing together communities. And with communities, I mean observatories, there are academic institutions where PIs use most of the science data that comes out of telescopes. So how we can bring together all of these different communities in terms of addressing the challenge 5 years down the road for time domain astronomy. And when we think about different types of communities, they have their own established networks, they have their own ways of working. So it's really about thinking about different scales for these different organizations. And if we want to bring them together, we have to be mindful of not extracting all the talent from the smaller organizations and kind of distributing resources so that we are able to best make use of all the resources available at different organizations. One of the major points that we discussed was money brings people in in a very big way. So there should be funding agencies promoting more ambitious goals for time domain astronomy, trying to bring together these different organizations to work together. But again, money should not be the ultimate driver. We want to make sure that we have community goals to achieve, and then we have the expertise from make use of expertise from the different organizations that are working together. So this is collaboration across different communities and scales. So that was most of the part one of the session. And then the second half of the session, we spent time on discussing how do we measure the potential to discover novelties. So if we think about science too, there are two different kinds of science: low risk, medium reward science versus the high risk, high reward science. So it's easier to measure the former on paper, but again, it's not the most straightforward. There is no straightforward way to measure high risk, high reward science. So in that case, we have and easy to trick the performance index. So if we think about how well we can do that, we should actually encourage all the researchers and PIs to think in the direction of high risk science. And to do something like that, we can have hackathons so that people can come together and brainstorm on how we can work towards having more ambitious goals. Um, right. So so another point was that thinking in terms of like how tax actually grant time for different proposals. Um, we should not assume that tax will always give time for the low risk kind of science, and and we should not think that it's hard to convince the tax to grant time for the high risk kind of science. So this is coming from a TAC member perspective, that this should not be something that the PIs assume. So you should actually go for high risk science in your proposals. Also thinking about in terms of the upcoming surveys, they're going to be ambitious surveys. They're going to have a lot more potential for something that we haven't done in the past. So this is something to think about in terms of how we can explore different parameter spaces. So actually go on for more curious and more ambitious proposals. And then again, a suggestion for a tag that came out of all of this discussion is it's not always easy for the PIs to make a mindset, like shift in their mindset. And so the call for proposals should actually encourage the PIs to go for high risk kind of science, so that they can trigger their minds to actually promote for such kind of science. I think that's pretty much everything that we had from the time domain discussion. So that's all. Thank you.